Welcome to Calipatria Prison, one of the most feared correctional facilities in the United States. Surrounded by a vast desert, rows of electrified fences, and looming guard towers, it stands as a fortress where violence, desperation, and strict order converge every single day. Behind these walls, survival depends not only on brute force, but also on the cunning to navigate complex gang politics. And at the heart of this institution's ruthless hierarchy once stood an inmate so notorious that he was given a name matching the terror he inspired: El Diablo, meaning the devil. However, our tale centers on Reggie Cole, a 19-year-old who entered Calipatria to serve a life sentence for a crime he swore he didn't commit. Confronted by gangs, betrayal, and the seemingly impossible quest for justice, Reggie's journey would reshape everything he once believed about hope. Reggie's story begins long before the prison gates slammed shut behind him. In 1985, his family moved to Los Angeles, landing in an area plagued by rising crime and relentless gang violence. He was only 10 years old when his older brother Kenny, 15 at the time, joined one of these formidable gangs. Within a few years, that same brother was gunned down in a sudden street ambush, leaving Reggie shattered and consumed by grief. Although he attempted to focus on school, the harsh realities of his environment overshadowed his dreams. In time, Reggie dropped out, found himself spiraling into petty drug offenses, and was eventually arrested multiple times. By 19, when he was charged with murder in front of a notorious brothel, few were surprised. Yet Reggie himself maintained his innocence, insisting he had nothing to do with the killing. Convicted and sentenced to life in prison, Reggie was transferred to Calipatria. Upon arrival, he noticed the oppressive heat, the incessant stench from the prison's livestock area, and the immediate sense of dread in the air. The institution itself looked more like a fortress built to keep nightmares contained, with towering electric fences that promised swift death for anyone foolish enough to try scaling them. Once inside, Reggie and the other new inmates were stripped, searched, and separated into cramped cells. His cellmate didn't even acknowledge his presence, perhaps afraid that any form of friendship would be exploited by the lawless predatory culture. In his first few days, Reggie witnessed his cellmate being brutalized and assaulted by a group of prisoners who stormed their tiny room without warning. Powerless to intervene, Reggie realized that if he didn't learn to fight back, he would quickly become the next target. Desperate for self-defense, he carved a makeshift weapon out of a toothbrush, sharpening its tip on a concrete floor. This grim necessity underscored life in Calipatria: either you adapted to the violence, or it consumed you. Each day in the prison yard, Reggie observed the complex ecosystem of gangs that controlled nearly every aspect of inmate life. Alliances were often formed along racial lines, but some were purely pragmatic, offering mutual protection to those who joined. Reggie, recalling how his brother had fallen in the streets, recognized that backing out or staying neutral would only mark him as vulnerable. When he was eventually cornered in the yard by a hulking enforcer demanding submission, Reggie responded by driving his sharpened toothbrush into the man's side, a bold move that elevated him from easy prey to an adversary worthy of caution. That act caught the attention of a group known as 49, who promptly recruited Reggie. For the first time since entering Calipatria, he felt the slightest sense of security. While the gang's protection didn't eliminate the ever-present threat of violence, it did mean he had men willing to stand by him, whether on the basketball court or in the mess hall. Yet hanging over every alliance was the specter of a single individual: Eddie Clark, widely known as El Diablo. Unofficially recognized as the puppet master behind every smuggling operation and backroom deal, El Diablo commanded fear like no other. Even the guards, outnumbered and eager to keep the peace, granted him certain indulgences, allowing him to maintain a loose sense of order. His infamy stemmed from a childhood spent in juvenile detention centers and a string of brutal crimes that escalated with every re-entry into society. For 4 years, Reggie managed to avoid a direct confrontation with El Diablo by keeping his head down. He channeled his energy into intense workouts, building the lean physique of a fighter. At 24, he was nothing like the skinny 19-year-old who had first arrived. Nevertheless, he remained acutely aware that if El Diablo ever took an interest in him, the outcome would likely be fatal. That moment arrived when a guard discovered a hidden blade belonging to one of El Diablo's closest associates during a yard search. Needing a scapegoat to protect his ally, El Diablo casually singled out Reggie, accusing him of owning the weapon. If Reggie submitted, he would essentially declare himself weak, and the yard sharks would converge. But if he denied it, he would turn El Diablo into a permanent enemy. In the end, Reggie chose to stand his ground. El Diablo's reaction was swift. Weeks later, without any subtlety, he walked straight up to Reggie and stabbed him in the waist in plain view of everyone. Bloodied, Reggie clenched his side, knowing that in a place like this, a failure to retaliate could be a death sentence. A few days later, when all inmates were lined up in the yard for a routine post-break search, El Diablo stood at the front with a smug grin on his face. Reggie realized that this might be his only opportunity to strike back before El Diablo tightened his grip even further. Despite the injury to his abdomen, Reggie retrieved a concealed knife he had hidden outside and charged at El Diablo, plunging the blade directly into the older man's throat. Guards and inmates alike froze, too shocked to react. Within seconds, El Diablo collapsed, struggling for breath. Guards tackled Reggie, hauling him off to solitary confinement as alarm bells rang across the compound. Inmates were locked in their cells for days while the administration weighed the repercussions of losing the most feared inmate in the facility. Though Reggie never denied what he had done, he prepared for the likely verdict of the death penalty. Then, an unforeseen twist emerged. A court-appointed lawyer, Christopher Blort, began re-examining Reggie's original case. He discovered glaring inconsistencies in the murder investigation that had resulted in Reggie's life sentence. Forensic analysis indicated that the victim, Felipe Gonzalez, had been shot from an elevated angle, contradicting witness statements. Furthermore, the key witness, a brothel manager, later admitted to fabricating his entire testimony to secure leniency for his own illegal enterprise. All the while, the police officer handling Reggie's case had, in fact, been a rookie desperate to solve her first major homicide. Evidence mounted that Reggie, who had indeed been involved in selling weed, was never present at the crime scene in question. The bullet wound in his leg was old, dating back to his early teens, not sustained during the alleged murder. These revelations meant Reggie's initial conviction was built on flawed or fabricated evidence. With Christopher Blort's persistent advocacy, the case was brought back to court. Eventually, the judge threw out the original murder conviction. Reggie now faced a new legal battle, proving that his killing of El Diablo was in self-defense. Though the act itself had been shockingly public, his attorney argued that Reggie, having endured repeated threats, had good reason to fear El Diablo's next strike. The court reclassified the charge from first-degree murder to second-degree, meaning Reggie would serve 10 years in solitary confinement. By that point, he had already completed most of that term awaiting trial. In 2009, after a total of 16 years behind bars, 10 spent in near-complete isolation, Reggie finally emerged from Calipatria's gates as a free man. Later, Los Angeles awarded him more than $5 million in compensation for the wrongful conviction that landed him in prison in the first place. No sum, however, could replace the years of his life spent under constant threat. The story of Reggie Cole is a reminder of how a single false allegation can derail a young life, and how, within the brutality of the system, a person may resort to extreme measures just to survive. What do you think? Comment below. I want to know your opinion about this matter. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button, and also don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more of these kinds of videos. Thanks for watching.